Going to look at some of the initiatives,
Correct.
ballot initiatives that we can say are countrywide, but we live in Maryland. So I think first, the only thing and the most prudent thing is to look at what ballot initiatives we have locally
Okay.
in a myriad in about 3 weeks. What's going to be what's on the ballot? And for those of you who don't understand what is in the ballot, for something to appear on the ballot, it's the signatures have been signed and stuff. People, the referendum has been managed, matarages, and it has been put so people can vote on that. I don't know why this one is laughing and that one.
Because they said the right make a light.
Shut up. So I think what we can start.
Annette,
by all means, we look at. I think I have the crystal ball by a guy who has retweeted me. Yes, I'll say that. But we can look at some of the ballot initiatives.
Okay.
And by the way, please feel free to be loud.
So I know that I mentioned this a little bit in that earlier section that we can actually look up what our ballot is going to look like, and most state actually you can look up what your ballot is going to look like, right? And so most people know when the president is running, that's going to be a question like, who do you want? In the state of Maryland, who do you want to be governor? There's a Republican person, there's a Democratic person, there's a libertarian, whatever other party, Green Party, whatever it might be. So the initiatives, for those of you who don't know, these are ballot questions. These are things that was decided, you know what, we need to ask, based on this Constitution, we need to ask people in this state what they feel about this topic before we go ahead and decide. We can't just exclude them, or we have chosen to include
public
them.
participation.
Right. So we need to have that, right? So in the state of Maryland, and in many states, a lot of times these questions have to do with money. Like, do you agree that we should put $250,000 towards our public schools? Do you agree that we should put X amount of money towards a bond that is going to go towards X amount, towards this particular type of thing, right? Those ballot questions oftentimes don't get discussed, except for in recent history and even on current ballots in certain states when it comes to like casinos, right? Are we going to have casinos here? We had a question like that recently in the state of Maryland.
Yes.
And I do know that I believe there's like 1 or 2 states that's having a question right now that has to do with casinos. Do we want to have casinos in our state? Do we want the money to go towards schools? Things like that. In the state of Maryland right now, one of the big questions that we have is about legalizing marijuana, right?
Legalize that mother sucker.
So we've already
would that include edibles?
Yes.
Okay.
So we already have in the state of Maryland dispensaries. These are places that have government licensing to give marijuana out, and mostly on a medical basis, right? And the reason why this now listen, my Kenyan parents, aunties, and whomever.
Yes, tell them about that bad drug.
Let me tell you something, okay? About the bang, about the whatever you called it.
Marijuana.
Bangio, sorry. Pardon my American accent.
Kigode, Shada.
All of that,
Kigode,
right?
Shada. Oh, sorry.
So, when it comes to this, I know that there's a cultural thing that might make you feel like I can't get with this subject, right?
Correct.
When growing up in Kenya, the people who are smoking weed are the ones who are getting in trouble. They're the ones who are fighting with the police. They're the ones who are
breaking into houses.
Those are not people who are using it. Those are people who are abusing.
They were breaking into houses.
So whatever they were doing, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Is bad.
I wasn't there. I don't know. Missy Joey that one. But what I do know, is as long as I look like this.
Yeah.
Right? As long as I look like this, and I live in the United States.
You're not white.
I'm not white. As long as I look like this, it's very likely that being in possession of and or being next to or whatever the case may be can cause me to have a legal issue. Let me give you a real life scenario. some of you guys like to live in these really nice, very white neighborhoods, very whitey neighborhoods, right? Because you can afford to do so, and that is wonderful. Yep. Congratulations. That's great. But what happens is now your children are living in these neighborhoods.
Correct.
And they're going to school with people who don't look like them and are doing things and not realizing that they do not have the same
privilege.
They do not have the same privilege. Their consequences will be different when they do these things. This is what for the audience, the story building is so that you can understand the importance of this question, right? So when your son gets into the car with his best friend because they play lacrosse, right, together, and they're driving and they get pulled over and there is a bag that is a little bit too big in the vehicle, and even though the name on the vehicle belongs to the person who doesn't look like us.
Jake.
Thank you. From State Farm. So when that person...
You are enabling.
We just lost a sponsor. You
enable it.
Go ahead.
So when that person when your kid gets pulled over, they're the ones who get sent into lockup. They're the ones who, and you know what's going to happen? That very privileged person might be talking to the officer in an aggressive way, or in a privileged way, like the way you might talk to your uncle or something like that. And you being a bystander might then become the person who actually catches the wrath that is coming from a frustrating situation.
Correct.
That we're voting for our kids, all right? We're not voting to condone it. If you feel however you want to feel, that's fine.
So
we're voting to protect our children. In my opinion, I feel like anything that's going to keep us not incarcerated is a good thing.
Did you hear that, Omosh?
Yeah, I heard that Jake from State Farm is going to get a lot of flack. And
now over here,
I wouldn't be allowed the same
DJ Tucha says over here, I don't think weed stigma is a cultural thing. It's just Joe Muzungu alisema. What he said.
That's possible.
Now, there's that ballot initiative for Maryland. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the most... Right now, I think that is what... Is that what... Because there are several others. And I think we can start with... So if you go to Sabato's Crystal Ball, Center for Politics, there are few... There are very many. So there's abortion. So there's one... So in abortion, there are 5 states. In 5 states, voters will be asked to approve measures addressing abortion. In 3 states, California, Michigan, and Vermont, the measures would enact policies sought by abortion rights advocates. In 2 others, Kentucky and Montana, the measures seek to create or allow for limitations on abortions. Now, if you're in those states, habari ndio hiyo. California's Proposition 1 was placed in the ballot by the Democratic-controlled legislature, would enshrine reproductive rights, including abortion and contraception, in the state's constitution. Abortion rights are already secure in deep blue California. So you're in Angori. A Public Policy Institute of California poll found 69% of likely voters back the measure. Michigan's Proposal 3, which was put on the ballot after the rapid collection of more than 735,000 signatures, would also enshrine reproductive rights in the state constitution, meaning zikiingia huko
hizo mimi nasubiri state ziko na majani
hizo. So all right, so marijuana and other drug policy, because there's also immigration and citizenship. So the 2 states would move to liberalize policy towards immigrants. Now this pertains to immigrants.
Yes.
In Arizona,
Ooh, Alpayo.
There's Proposition 308 would allow certain non-citizen residents